In the heart of the expansive wilderness, where the whisper of the wind dances through towering pines and the scent of earth mingles with the crispness of fresh air, resided a man named Jackson. A seasoned hunter, Jackson had spent decades honing his skills in the forest. However, his relationship with hunting extended far beyond simply stalking animals. It was woven with threads of deep respect for nature and a commitment to conservation. Jackson's passion for hunting began in his early teenage years, a rite of passage passed down through generations. His father had instilled in him not just techniques for tracking and shooting but also principles rooted in stewardship. "It's not just about taking," his father would say, "it's about understanding the balance of life." These lessons shaped Jackson's outlook. Hunting was an intricate dance, one that involved respecting what he took from nature. As he grew older, Jackson transformed from a typical hunter into a dedicated advocate for wildlife preservation. He recognized that hunting had its place within a larger ecosystem. It could help manage populations and foster biodiversity when approached responsibly. With each trip into the rugged terrain, he carried not only his gear but also a semblance of responsibility towards the woodland creatures he encountered. Returning home after long days spent trekking through dense underbrush or standing vigilantly at dawn, Jackson often reflected on his connection to the land. It was during these moments of solitude that he felt most alive, acutely aware of every heartbeat in nature's symphony around him, the rustle of leaves, the call of distant birds, and even the bubbling brooks that harmonized like melodies against life's chorus. His motivations were deeply rooted in respect. Jackson would often participate in conservation efforts, sharing knowledge with new hunters about ethical practices and promoting sustainable hunting methods. Whether it was taking part in reforestation projects or sharing stories about tracking and survival skills with local youth, he believed in nurturing a sense of responsibility toward all beings that inhabited the wild. Yet, on this fateful day, as he wandered deeper into the forest than usual, little did he know that this journey would test everything he knew about himself and his values. The sun hung low in the sky, casting elongated shadows that beckoned him further into uncharted territory where ancient trees stood like sentinels guarding secrets untold. As he ventured onward, his instincts finely honed by years of experience guided him more than ever before. Driven by his appreciation for the wild, its beauty and fragility, he felt compelled to explore beyond mere hunting grounds today. Unbeknownst to him, destiny awaited just around the bend, ready to change the course of not only his day but potentially his life forever. As dawn broke over the forest, a soft golden light filtered through the canopy of leaves, illuminating the vibrant hues of autumn. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and fallen foliage, signaling the approach of winter. Jackson felt invigorated by the chill that brushed against his skin. It was a reminder that nature was in constant flux, preparing for the change in seasons. Today promised to be different. He had ventured deeper into the woods than he typically would, drawn by an inexplicable sense of adventure. The forest around him was alive with sounds, the chatter of squirrels gathering acorns, the rustle of leaves as they danced in the gentle breeze, and the distant call of a hawk circling high above. Each sound resonated with him as he walked, a reminder of the interconnectedness he cherished so deeply. The golden hues of autumn had turned the forest into a patchwork quilt, each tree dressed in shades of amber and crimson. Jackson paused for a moment, taking in the breathtaking view. It was a sight that filled him with gratitude. Yet beneath this serene beauty lay a tension that he could feel brewing in the air. Perhaps it was intuition or an unshakable feeling that something awaited him just beyond the next bend. As he continued along the narrow path, his senses heightened. Every snap of a twig or whisper of wind made him acutely aware of his surroundings. He had learned over years of hunting that nature could be unpredictable, and today felt charged with unspoken urgency. The deeper he traveled into this wild sanctuary, the more attuned he became to its rhythms. Suddenly, a faint sound broke through the symphony of nature, a soft whimpering that tugged at his heartstrings. It was a sound so out of place in this serene environment that it sent chills down his spine. Curiosity piqued, Jackson followed the sound, moving cautiously through the underbrush. As he approached a clearing, he felt an unsettling sense of dread wash over him. What he encountered next would forever alter his understanding of life and death within the forest. There, amidst a thicket of brambles and fallen leaves, lay a pregnant bear struggling to rise. Her fur was matted and stained, her breathing labored as she attempted to push herself up. Jackson's heart raced as he witnessed her distress. Instinctively, he crouched low, knowing that this creature before him was not just another animal in need but a mother fighting for her life and her unborn cubs. The atmosphere shifted, gone were the carefree sounds of nature, replaced by an eerie silence as if the forest recognized the gravity of this moment. With each desperate whimper from the bear, Jackson felt an overwhelming wave of compassion surge within him. He was faced with a choice that would test his values and redefine his purpose in ways he never imagined possible. In that moment, all thoughts of hunting were eclipsed by an urgent need to help, to act as a protector rather than a predator. As Jackson crouched low, a wave of shock washed over him at the sight of the struggling bear. The once majestic creature, embodying the raw power and grace of the wild, now lay weak and vulnerable amidst the brambles. Her dark fur, usually glistening under the sun, was matted with dirt and leaves, evidence of her desperate fight for survival. Jackson's heart sank as he observed the labored rise and fall of her chest, each breath seemingly a Herculean effort. The bear's condition was dire, she was emaciated, a shadow of her former self, suggesting she had not found food in days. Jackson's instinctive concern surged within him like a storm. He had seen animals in distress before, but this was different. This was a mother-to-be, caught in a moment of peril that could threaten not only her life but also the lives of her unborn cubs. The realization struck him hard. He felt an overwhelming sense of empathy for this creature that had come to symbolize both vulnerability and resilience. As he shifted closer, careful to remain silent and unobtrusive, he noted how her eyes darted around with fear. They were wide and expressive, filled with an unmistakable plea for help. In that moment, their eyes met, his deep brown gaze locked onto hers, and something profound transpired between them. Jackson felt as if the air around them thickened with an unspoken understanding. She sensed his presence was one of compassion rather than threat. The bear emitted a low whimper that echoed through the stillness of the forest, breaking Jackson's heart. It was a sound layered with pain and fear but also tinged with maternal instinct. Each whimper seemed to resonate within him, drawing out emotions he often kept buried beneath his rugged exterior. He had always appreciated wildlife from a distance but never had he felt so intimately connected to another being in such distress. With every passing second, Jackson battled internally. He was a hunter by trade yet found it impossible to reconcile his instincts against this fragile life before him. The hunter's logic told him to retreat and observe from afar, ensuring he did not disrupt nature's course. But as he observed the bear struggling to lift her head even slightly, another part of him urged action, a desire to intervene and make a difference. The atmosphere shifted sharply, shadows lengthened around them as if nature itself acknowledged the gravity of this encounter. The beauty of autumn faded into insignificance compared to the raw reality playing out before him in that secluded clearing. Jackson took a deep breath, knowing this moment would define him. He felt his pulse quicken as resolve ignited within. He couldn't just stand by any longer while this mother fought for life against insurmountable odds. Determination surged through him as he stepped forward once more, the line between hunter and protector blurred irrevocably in his heart. As Jackson knelt beside the bear, he took in her frail form and the myriad challenges she faced in her weakened state. The once powerful creature, capable of navigating the rugged terrain with ease, was now a mere shadow of herself, her body struggling to support the weight of impending motherhood. He noticed deep scratches along her flanks, likely from her desperate attempts to find food and shelter, and he could see the weariness in her eyes, a profound reflection of her fight against despair. The bear's emaciated condition indicated she hadn't eaten for days, perhaps even longer. This deprivation not only threatened her own survival but jeopardized the lives of her unborn cubs. Jackson knew that a mother bear's nutritional needs soared during pregnancy. She required sustenance to nurture her developing young, yet here she lay, trapped in a cycle of exhaustion and hunger. It was a brutal reality that echoed the harshness of nature. Only the strongest survived, and the weak often paid the ultimate price. With each shallow breath, the bear exhibited the daunting toll that her circumstances had exacted. Jackson understood that animals in such a vulnerable state were prey to various dangers in the wild. They were easy targets for predators lurking nearby, emboldened by the scent of weakness. He had witnessed this cycle countless times during his years as a hunter. Nature was often merciless, and life in the wild meant grappling with constant threats, especially when one was unable to defend themselves. As Jackson observed her frailty, he felt a surge of protectiveness well up inside him. The bear's plight resonated with him on a profoundly personal level. He imagined the tiny lives inside her, unaware of their precarious existence. Would they ever see the light of day? What chance did they have if their mother wasn't strong enough to bring them into the world? The weight of these thoughts bore down on him as he battled internally with his instincts as both a hunter and a protector. The forest around them seemed eerily quiet, as if holding its breath in anticipation of what might unfold. Jackson could feel the tension in the air. It was palpable and filled with an unspoken urgency. He knew that if he didn't act swiftly, the consequences could be dire. The challenge was not only to save the bear but also to ensure that she could eventually care for her cubs once they arrived. He realized that time was not on their side. Every moment spent contemplating his next move felt like a race against fate. As he assessed her condition further, he could see her struggling to stand, muscles trembling under the weight of both physical strain and maternal instinct. It was clear she needed immediate help, a lifeline thrown into an unforgiving world where survival was anything but guaranteed. In that moment, Jackson made a silent vow. He would do everything within his power to ensure that this mother and her unborn cubs received the chance they so desperately deserved. As Jackson crouched beside the struggling bear, a tempest of emotions swirled within him. The instincts that had guided him as a hunter for years now battled fiercely against a newfound urge to protect. Here was a life in peril, and he was faced with a choice that would test the very core of his being. Should he intervene and become her savior, or should he step back and let nature take its course? The voice of his upbringing echoed in his mind, his father's teachings about the circle of life, the balance between predator and prey. Hunting had always been about respect for the wild, understanding when to take and when to let be. This moment, however, felt profoundly different. Jackson felt the weight of the bear's plight pressing down on him, demanding attention that no amount of hunting could justify. He had always prided himself on being a responsible hunter, but now, standing before this vulnerable creature, those ideals felt inadequate. He watched her labored breaths and the deep-set fear in her eyes. Each moment spent contemplating his next move felt like an eternity, and with every passing second, he could sense her strength waning. Was it possible for him to reconcile his identity as a hunter with the role of protector? The thought gnawed at him, creating an internal rift that left him paralyzed by indecision. Jackson's heart raced as he imagined what it would mean to save her. Would he be able to summon help in time? Could he find a way to transport her to safety? The sheer enormity of the task loomed over him like a dark cloud. He had never attempted anything like this before. In his experience, life in the wild was often brutal and uncompromising, yet here he was facing an opportunity to rewrite that narrative. Yet the instincts honed through years of hunting whispered warnings in his ear. Intervening could lead to unforeseen consequences both for him and for the bear. He had seen animals become more aggressive when threatened by human presence. Would she see him as a predator? Would she fight back out of desperation? The thought chilled him, but more than that, it filled him with uncertainty about whether he could truly help her or if his actions would only make things worse. Amidst this turmoil, Jackson felt something deeper stirring within him, a call to action that transcended instinct and reason. The maternal bond between the bear and her unborn cubs pulled at his heartstrings in ways he couldn't ignore. This wasn't just about survival, it was about giving hope where there seemed to be none. In that critical moment, Jackson made a decision. If he were to embrace his role as protector, he needed to cast aside doubt and fears. He would approach this situation not as a hunter but as someone willing to fight for life against all odds. With newfound determination coursing through him, Jackson rose from his crouched position and prepared to take action, ready to turn this seemingly insurmountable dilemma into an opportunity for compassion. With determination igniting his every thought, Jackson began to assess the situation. He needed to approach this rescue with caution, utilizing the skills he had honed over the years, and ensuring he wouldn't become a threat to the bear in her vulnerable state. First, he took a deep breath to steady himself, reminding himself that he had faced challenging situations in the wild before. This would require finesse, not aggression. Jackson carefully observed the bear from a distance, taking note of her breathing patterns and the areas where she seemed most injured. The scratches on her side appeared deep, indicating she might have gotten caught in dense thorns or perhaps had an altercation with another animal. It was crucial to determine whether she was in shock or just too weak to rise. Every detail mattered. With slow, deliberate movements, he began to create a temporary shelter using fallen branches and leaves, an effort to make her feel more at ease and less exposed. He knew that animals often react defensively when they feel threatened, thus, he aimed to build trust by demonstrating his intent was not hostile. The gentle rustle of leaves might provide a sense of security amidst her distress. After establishing a makeshift barrier, Jackson stepped closer while keeping his posture low and non-threatening. He spoke softly, using a calm voice laced with encouragement, "You're going to be okay." Although he understood that bears didn't comprehend human language the way people did, he hoped the tone would convey his sincerity and willingness to help. He reached into the small backpack slung across his shoulders and pulled out supplies he always carried for emergencies, a first aid kit stocked with basic medical tools, some granola bars for quick energy, something he could offer later if it came down to it. As he approached cautiously, he noticed how the bear flinched at his movement but held her ground instead of retreating further into weakness. Kneeling beside her now, Jackson examined her condition more closely without touching her yet. He could see prominent ribs showing through discolored fur, evidence of starvation, and watched as she struggled against instinctual fear while trying to maintain composure for her unborn cubs. Every labored breath she took seemed to resonate with him, it felt like they shared that moment entirely. Jackson quickly devised a plan in his mind. He needed to get help, a veterinarian or wildlife rescue team that could provide proper aid but also ensure safety for both him and the bear. Time was critical, he would need to scout nearby for any signs of human activity while ensuring no sudden movement startled her further. He marked a few recognizable landmarks in his mind as potential return points while maintaining awareness of the bear's condition as best as possible. Her eyes followed him warily yet curiously, there was an unspoken bond being forged between them, a shared understanding that transcended their species. As he moved back into the underbrush toward where he had entered, Jackson felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through him. It was more than just an instinct, it was the dawning realization that this was about saving lives and nurturing hope amidst despair. With every step away from the bear's side filled with urgency, Jackson committed himself fully to action. His transformation from hunter to protector solidified with each decision made along this unexpected journey. As Jackson knelt by the bear, an extraordinary moment unfolded, one that seemed to transcend the boundaries of species. He had approached her with caution and care, but now he sensed a shift in the air, a silent communication that spoke volumes. Slowly, as he settled into his crouch, Jackson noticed the way her body language began to change. She was no longer just a creature in distress but a being capable of perceiving intention. The bear's wide eyes, once filled with fear and wariness, softened slightly as they locked onto Jackson's gaze. In that fleeting second, their worlds intersected, his human concern meeting her primal instinct for safety. Jackson held his breath, feeling a connection forge itself between them through sheer emotional energy. It was as if they were sharing an unspoken pact. She could sense his desire to help rather than harm. He watched intently as she relaxed just a fraction, lowering her head slightly and shifting her weight to one side. It was a gesture of acceptance, a tentative trust beginning to blossom amid her frail condition. Jackson felt his heart swell. This was not just an animal he was trying to save but a mother fighting for her unborn cubs. Their shared vulnerability in that moment created an understanding that transcended words. Jackson's presence became less imposing as he continued speaking softly to her, maintaining an even tone that resonated with warmth. "I won't hurt you," he murmured, almost as if affirming a truth for both of them. With each utterance, he noticed how the bear tilted her ears towards him, acknowledging his voice as she listened attentively. She was becoming attuned to his spirit, the calmness in his demeanor contrasting sharply against the turmoil within her own heart. Time seemed to slow as he observed the subtle tremors in her body. It was clear she was still weak but now carried a glimmer of hope reflected in those expressive eyes. In return for his gentle approach and unwavering intention, she granted him something precious, a moment where fear gave way to possibility. The bond formed in this silent dialogue grew deeper with every breath they shared. Jackson felt a wave of emotions wash over him, compassion mingled with determination surged like a river within him. He understood that this connection would fuel not only his resolve but also guide his next steps in ensuring her survival and that of her cubs. The stakes were grave, every decision made from here on out would carry weight beyond measure. As he remained poised beside this pregnant bear, Jackson realized that what had begun as merely an act of intervention had transformed into something far more profound, a shared journey fueled by empathy and mutual respect. This experience would redefine not only how he viewed himself but also how he perceived the intricate web of life connecting all beings. In this pivotal moment, Jackson embraced the mantle of protector wholeheartedly, sensing that their fates were entwined in ways he could hardly comprehend at that time. He would not allow fear or uncertainty to dictate this encounter any longer. Instead, he chose to walk forward with conviction and courage, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their shared quest for survival. With the palpable bond forged between Jackson and the pregnant bear still fresh in his mind, he knew that every moment counted. Time was slipping away, and without immediate help, the chances of survival for both the mother and her unborn cubs dwindled with each passing second. The urgency of the situation propelled him into action, crystallizing his commitment to seek assistance from those with the expertise to provide the necessary care. Jackson quickly rose to his feet, scanning the surrounding forest. He remembered that a wildlife rescue organization operated out of a nearby town, a sanctuary dedicated to rehabilitating injured or distressed animals. He had seen their vehicle parked at a trailhead when he had set out earlier that morning. He needed to get there and rally support before it was too late. He took a deep breath, steadied by the resolve that surged within him, and abandoned any remaining doubts. As he retraced his steps, Jackson mentally mapped out the best route back to his truck, calculating how much time he could spare without leaving the bear alone for too long. Every stride felt like a promise he was making, not just to her but to every creature that had ever crossed his path. The forest around him began shifting back to its familiar sounds, but Jackson's focus remained sharp. The leaves rustled above him, and branches snapped underfoot as he pushed through the underbrush, driven by urgency. Each sound echoed the silent plea of the bear's moment of vulnerability. He could almost hear her laboring breaths calling out for help. As he reached his truck parked along the dirt road, adrenaline coursed through him. He fumbled with his phone, fingers trembling as he dialed the number for the wildlife rescue team. As it rang, he felt torn between the excitement of seeking help and dread over what might unfold in his absence. When someone finally picked up, Jackson quickly explained the situation, how he had discovered a pregnant bear in dire condition struggling in the woods. He painted a vivid picture of her frailty, emphasizing the urgency of their response needed to save her and her unborn cubs. "Please, she needs immediate assistance," he urged, his voice laced with desperation. The person on the other end quickly responded with professionalism tempered by understanding, assuring him that help would be dispatched right away. Jackson felt a wave of relief wash over him, buoyed by hope. The thought of care arriving for her drew a lightness from within, as if they had already started their collaborative journey toward survival. After hanging up, he looked out into the woods where he had left her. She was still there, still fighting. Jackson realized he still had time to reinforce her shelter before help arrived. Commitment surged within him once more. This was about teamwork, human and animal working together to overcome adversity. Returning to where the bear lay nestled in her makeshift sanctuary, Jackson took extra care not to disturb her as he added more branches and leaves around her. He spoke softly once more, reassuring her that help was on its way. Each word became a thread weaving their fates together, binding them in mutual trust and resolve to survive against all odds. In truth, this decision wasn't just an intervention, it was a defining moment in Jackson's life, one that would forever reshape his identity as both a hunter and a protector in this intricate dance of life. He would not only safeguard this bear but advocate for all creatures deserving of compassion and care moving forward. As Jackson awaited the arrival of the wildlife rescue team, tension coursed through him, mingling with a flicker of hope. He kept a watchful eye on the bear, who seemed to sense his presence and remained as calm as she could under the circumstances. Despite her weakened state, she had momentarily settled in the temporary shelter he had constructed. For Jackson, every minute was a reminder of their urgency. He knew that transporting her safely would require careful planning and execution. When the rescue team finally arrived, Jackson felt a surge of relief mixed with anxiety. The two volunteers emerged from their vehicle equipped with veterinary supplies, their expressions resolute yet sympathetic. Jackson quickly explained the situation, detailing the bear's condition and emphasizing her fragility. The team listened intently, nodding as they took in how much this bear's life meant not only to him but potentially to the future of her cubs. Together they approached her slowly, respecting both her space and vulnerability. The lead rescuer knelt beside Jackson, assessing the bear's injuries and overall health. "We'll need to sedate her for safe transport," she said calmly as she prepared her equipment. While worried about any potential harm to the mother or her cubs, Jackson knew it was necessary. It would allow them to move swiftly without causing additional stress or injury. The sedative was administered with careful precision. Within moments, he watched as the bear's muscles relaxed and her breathing became slower and more steady. Although it was a necessary step in saving her life, a pang of guilt tugged at him. He didn't want her to feel vulnerable once more but understood it was for her safety. Once the bear was sedated and ready for transport, Jackson and the rescuers maneuvered together, using a stretcher designed specifically for wildlife transport. They worked in unison, one person guiding while another led in managing stability to avoid jostling during transit. It required delicate coordination amidst moments of uncertainty when branches snagged on their path or uneven ground threatened to disrupt their careful grip. "Oh no," one rescuer whispered when they hit a patch of rough terrain near an embankment. The wrangle sent shivers down Jackson's spine as he instinctively steadied himself against fear creeping into his mind. The weight of responsibility sharpened in this critical phase. "Take it slow," he urged amid rising anxiety but layered with determination. "We can do this." His voice carried an encouraging tone that helped quell doubt among them all. Finally reaching the truck that awaited their arrival at the forest's edge felt like crossing a monumental threshold. As they carefully loaded her into the back, her form now motionless but alive, a shared sigh filled with exhaustion and triumph escaped their lips. The volunteers quickly secured everything while keeping aware of their precious cargo. Jackson stood back for a moment, allowing himself to absorb what transpired. Despite numerous obstacles along the way, from raw emotions to physical challenges, every effort brought them one step closer to saving that life hanging precariously between peril and possibility. As they shut the doors of the vehicle and hopped into their seats for departure, a mixture of exhilaration and relief swept over him, once again mixed with uncertainty about what lay ahead at the vet clinic, but firm belief triumphed. They had done everything possible today to give this mother an opportunity. Her journey continued beyond these woods towards healing, now fueled by hope they shared together in those frantic moments filled with purpose. In the clinic's sterile environment, Jackson stood quietly beside the examination table where the bear lay under soft, dim lights. The echoes of the bustling medical team filled the space, but his focus remained solely on her. He observed how they monitored her vitals and administered fluids, each rustle of paper and soft murmur of voices adding to a symphony of hope laced with anxiety. It was an atmosphere charged with urgency, but also one that pulsated with compassion. As the veterinarian carefully examined the bear's injuries, Jackson couldn't help but lean in closer. He watched intently as she began to regain some consciousness. Her eyelids flickered open slightly, revealing deep pools of confusion and instinctual fear. In that moment, the air shifted around them, thickening with an unspoken understanding that this creature was not just a patient but a mother, one who needed reassurance that she was no longer alone in her fight for survival. Suddenly, he heard it, a faint sound breaking through the clinical monotone of machinery and voices, a ghostly cry that seemed to resonate from within her. It was a sound so soft yet filled with palpable urgency. The realization struck him hard. These were the sounds of cubs calling out from deep inside her, a response to instinctive maternal longing surfacing during her recovery. Jackson felt his chest tighten as he absorbed this revelation. He could almost envision tiny paws pressing against their mother's side, their little bodies nestled safely within her womb. The weight of what those innocent lives represented crashed over him like waves. Hope, fragility, and resilience rolled into one poignant package. The cries punctuated the stillness and sent shivers down his spine as he understood just how vital it was for this mother to recover fully for them to have any chance at life. The veterinarian caught his eye and offered a reassuring nod as if sensing his intense emotions swirling around him. In that quiet exchange, Jackson felt an empathetic bond forming between them. They were united in their goal, to save not just the bear but also the lives resting within her. As treatment progressed, Jackson continued to listen attentively to every noise emanating from the bear. Each sound, the gentle rasp of her breaths, softened whimpers, served as a reminder of her struggle and undying spirit. There was determination in those sounds, they conveyed a fierce will to survive against all odds. He found himself whispering encouraging words into the air despite knowing she might not fully register them. "You're strong," he said softly, hoping she could feel his presence like a lifeline tethering her back from despair. "You're going to make it." As time passed within those tense moments filled with hope and dread alike, Jackson made a silent promise. Not only would he advocate for this bear during treatment but he would carry their story forward beyond these walls in hopes of raising awareness about wildlife conservation. With every emotional interaction resonating within him, cubs calling out for their mother alongside murmurs of medical professionals working diligently, he realized that this experience was reshaping not only how he viewed animal welfare but also redefining what it meant to be stewards of life itself. In those crucial moments marked by heartfelt connection between human and animal, Jackson knew he had found purpose beyond hunting. He had embraced being part of something larger, a commitment not only to save one life but advocate tirelessly for many more yet to come. As Jackson sat quietly in the clinic, watching the bear recover from her ordeal, he found himself reflecting on the intricate tapestry of life and the profound interconnections within nature. This journey had forced him to confront the fragile balance that existed between survival and vulnerability, not only for the bear but for all creatures in the wild. The echoes of her faint cries reverberated in his mind, serving as a reminder of the fierce maternal instincts that drive life forward, echoing an ancient rhythm that he had never truly appreciated until now. In that moment, he thought deeply about motherhood in wildlife, the sacrifices mothers make to protect their young, often in the face of insurmountable odds. He felt a kinship with this bear, recognizing how her struggle mirrored the challenges faced by mothers everywhere. The bear was not just a representation of power and ferocity, but also of love and resilience, willing to fight against adversity for the sake of her unborn cubs. Jackson realized that this fundamental drive to nurture and protect was what distinguished life from mere existence. Moreover, he pondered how his own perspective on hunting had drastically shifted. No longer was it about taking life for the thrill, it had transformed into a responsibility to respect and sustain it. His father's lessons about stewardship echoed in his thoughts, blending seamlessly with the new insights gained through this experience. It became evident to him that true conservation meant engaging with nature compassionately, not just as a provider or protector but as a participant willing to contribute positively to the cycle of life. Jackson began to understand that nature is not simply a backdrop for human activities, it is a dynamic system where every being plays a critical role. He felt compelled to take action beyond his personal efforts. No longer would he stand idly by, instead, he envisioned advocacy as part of his life's work, sharing stories like the bear's to raise awareness about wildlife conservation and inspire others to see them not merely as game but as integral parts of an elaborate ecosystem deserving of empathy and respect. With each passing moment at the clinic, he grew more certain of his new purpose. In protecting this mother bear and her cubs, he had stumbled upon something profoundly life-affirming. It sharpened his sense of duty toward all creatures vulnerable in an indifferent world. Their voices deserved to be heard even if they could not speak. As hope bloomed within him, hope for this bear's recovery and her subsequent role as a mother, Jackson committed himself fully to advocating for wildlife rights and ecological balance. It was no longer solely about him or about hunting golden trophies, it was about safeguarding futures filled with life and learning from every encounter in nature. In those moments spent beside the recovering bear, Jackson discovered that true courage manifested in compassion, and true respect began with understanding not just observed boundaries but emotional ties among all living beings. With these revelations coursing through him like a lifeline intertwined with responsibility, he prepared to enter a new chapter, one where he would strive tirelessly to ensure both wildlife and humanity could coexist harmoniously on this shared planet. As the days passed in the clinic, the bear began her remarkable journey of recovery under careful and dedicated care. The veterinary team, equipped with a wealth of experience in wildlife rehabilitation, worked tirelessly to nurse her back to health. They administered fluids to combat dehydration, nutrients to restore her strength, and mental stimulation to keep her engaged while she slowly regained her health. Jackson visited as often as he could, offering support and keeping a watchful eye over the bear's progress. Initially, she remained lethargic from the effects of the sedation and severe malnourishment. However, as nourishing meals were introduced, consisting of specially formulated foods designed for recovering wildlife, her appetite began to awaken. Each small victory, her first tentative movement toward food or a stronger breath, served as a beacon of hope for Jackson and the medical team. The veterinarians continuously monitored her condition, carefully observing each fluctuation for improvement or signs of desperation that might indicate setbacks. It became evident that while her body was healing physically, there were also signs that her maternal instinct remained strong. She often paused during treatment to listen intently as if searching for those faint cries from her cubs deep inside her, echoes that still resided in the back of her mind. With time, the signs of progress escalated. The bear regained strength and vigor that had evaded her for so long. She began to engage more actively with those caring for her. Instead of passive observations, she would cautiously explore her enclosure when allowed out for short exercise sessions, a significant milestone that represented more than just physical healing, it embodied resilience. During one particular session, Jackson stood nearby when he observed something remarkable. The bear raised her head high in quiet determination and offered a soft rumble, reminiscent of a protective growl directed toward an unseen threat. Jackson felt a rush of emotion swell within him. This was more than just a show of strength, it symbolized connection and survival in strife against nature's trials. The veterinary team prepared for the imminent final stages of care, assessing whether it was safe for the bear to leave the clinic and return to the wild or if specialized foster care would be necessary during the last trimester before bringing forth any cubs. They performed another ultrasound scan to confirm the viability of those tiny lives that had stirred his heart so profoundly since his initial encounter. As Jackson stood witness to this pivotal moment, he could hardly contain himself. Hope surged through him like wildfire as they confirmed that all appeared well inside. The cubs had developed healthily alongside their determined mother. Their quiet partnership thrived amid challenges faced previously, a testament not only to one mother bear's will to survive but also to what could emerge from compassion shared between species. In those final days before release preparations commenced, Jackson's reflections turned toward broader implications regarding wildlife survival in challenging environments. He knew that ensuring future generations could thrive required more than individual acts, it required systemic change driven by collective responsibility from humanity toward nature itself. Accelerating towards new beginnings fueled by mounting anticipation mixed with pride at what this mother represented, a theme extending far beyond this one encounter, he promised himself he would advocate not just for this bear and her cubs but inspire others to join him in protecting wildlife at large so they too might have opportunities akin to hers in sustaining their legacy and place within Earth's intricate ecology. In witnessing recovery manifest both physiologically and emotionally within this bear, and thereby creating ripples beyond, from mere instinct converging into triumph over adversity seeped through him like life-affirming medicine meant surely for both teller and tale alike. The day of the bear's release dawned bright and crisp, infused with a sense of anticipation that hung in the air like the light mist over the landscape. Jackson stood at the edge of the clearing, heart pounding, as the veterinary team finalized their preparations. The bear, once frail and emaciated, now stood strong on her legs, her eyes alert and filled with an unmistakable spark of life. After weeks of dedicated recovery, she was ready to return to her natural habitat. As they approached the designated release site, a serene area bursting with autumn colors and rich foliage, Jackson felt a bittersweet swell of emotions. He had witnessed the bear's incredible journey from a state of despair to renewed strength, yet he could not shake off the weight of concern for her future as a mother. The thought of her navigating the wild once again, with all its dangers and uncertainties, filled him with both joy and trepidation. The moment arrived when the team gently opened the transport door, allowing the bear a glimpse of her surroundings. She hesitated for just a heartbeat, instinctively assessing this new environment that had once been familiar. At that moment, Jackson felt a profound connection surge between them, a recognition that they were both participants in a larger narrative woven by nature itself. "Go on, girl," he whispered softly, his voice thick with emotion as he stepped back to give her space. In response, she cautiously stepped out, her powerful muscles rippling beneath her fur as she took her first steps into freedom. The earth crunched softly under her paws as she explored the scents and sounds that surrounded her, each one a piece of home calling out to her. Jackson watched intently as she moved through the underbrush, pausing to sniff at a nearby tree and take in the intricate details of her surroundings. The sight filled him with hope. She was reclaiming her territory, reconnecting with the instincts that had kept her alive for years. Yet, his heart also tightened at the thought of what lay ahead, the struggles she would face finding food and protecting herself against predators. A soft rustle drew his attention as he spotted a nearby bush trembling slightly. Perhaps another creature was watching her first steps back into the world. In that moment, Jackson felt torn between joy for her newfound freedom and worry about how she would navigate this old yet unfamiliar landscape as a mother-to-be. But amidst his concerns, there was an underlying current of faith in nature's resilience and in this bear's tenacity to thrive. It was an assertion not just for herself but for the lives she carried within her. As she moved confidently forward, Jackson silently wished for her success and safety in motherhood. As he prepared to leave, knowing his presence could disrupt this pivotal moment, he took one last look at the bear, a creature who had taught him invaluable lessons of compassion and responsibility toward wildlife. With a heavy heart but hopeful spirit, he turned back toward his own path, determined to carry forth his commitment to advocacy. In witnessing this bittersweet release back into the wild, Jackson understood that while fear for her future lingered in his mind, it was hope that would ultimately guide their shared journey forward, a reminder that each life intertwined with another shapes the beautiful complexity of existence in nature. In the weeks following the bear's release, Jackson found himself reflecting deeply on the profound impact of his experience. He had entered the woods that fateful day as a seasoned hunter, but he emerged transformed, a protector with a newfound understanding of life, motherhood, and the delicate balance of nature. Every interaction he had had with the bear resonated within him, challenging previously held beliefs and shaping his perspective on what it meant to coexist with wildlife. As he continued his advocacy for wildlife conservation, Jackson became increasingly aware of the responsibility that came with being part of nature. He had witnessed the bear's remarkable recovery, and it became a powerful metaphor for resilience, not just for her but for all creatures facing challenges in an ever-changing world. The bear's tenacity and instinct to protect her unborn cub struck a chord deep within him, reinforcing the idea that every species plays a crucial role in the tapestry of life. Jackson committed himself to educating others about wildlife preservation efforts. He organized community workshops where he shared not just his own story of the bear but broader narratives that emphasized understanding and empathy towards animals. He spoke passionately about the importance of protecting habitats, respecting wildlife, and fostering a deeper appreciation for the interconnectedness of all living beings. His views on hunting underwent a significant transformation as well. No longer was it about the thrill of the chase or conquest, instead, he began to see hunting as a practice that must align with ethical stewardship. When participating in hunts, Jackson now focused on sustainable practices that prioritized population management and ecological balance rather than merely seeking trophies. He advocated for hunters to adopt a mindset rooted in respect for nature, urging them to appreciate each animal's story and its place within the ecosystem. Jackson also began volunteering with local wildlife rescue organizations, actively participating in efforts to rehabilitate injured animals and educate the public. Engaging directly with wildlife allowed him to connect even more deeply with nature's complexities. He realized that each animal rescued told a story, a narrative filled with struggle and survival that mirrored his own experiences with the pregnant bear. Through these initiatives, Jackson hoped to inspire others to form their connections with wildlife and develop a sense of responsibility toward their welfare. He often recalled watching the bear emerge into her habitat, her innate instincts guiding her toward survival. That moment served as a vivid reminder that every creature deserves a chance to thrive in its natural environment. Ultimately, Jackson recognized that his journey with the bear had woven itself into his identity. It taught him invaluable lessons about compassion, resilience, and advocacy, lessons that he would carry forth throughout his life. He now understood that true respect for nature meant taking action to ensure both human and animal welfare could coexist harmoniously. In embracing this path, Jackson felt an unshakable commitment to being a voice for those who could not speak for themselves, ensuring they would have not just existence but vibrant lives filled with possibility, much like the bear he once saved. Each encounter with nature from that point forward became an opportunity not only for reflection but also for proactive engagement in preserving the wild beauty of life around him. As Jackson reflected on the journey he shared with the pregnant bear, he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility towards all living beings. His experience had not only transformed his views on wildlife conservation but also deepened his understanding of empathy as a vital thread in the fabric of life. He recognized that each creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, plays a crucial role in the ecosystem, and their existence is intertwined with humanity's fate. The lessons learned from rescuing the bear resonated within him like a steady drumbeat, reminders of the fragility of life and the fierce instincts that drive survival. He understood now that compassion was not merely an emotion but an imperative action. It was essential to foster connections that honor life in its many forms. This realization ignited a passion for advocating not just for bears or any single species but for the entirety of nature. Jackson began to see his role as a steward of the earth, not just as someone who enjoyed its beauty but as an active participant responsible for protecting it. He felt compelled to educate others about the importance of wildlife conservation and to challenge perceptions that viewed animals solely as resources or trophies. Through community workshops and outreach programs, he strived to instill a sense of reverence and respect for all creatures, encouraging people to witness their lives and stories rather than viewing them as mere background. His advocacy extended beyond sharing his story. He collaborated with local organizations to implement conservation initiatives aimed at preserving habitats crucial for wildlife survival. Jackson dedicated himself to helping restore ecosystems that had been damaged by human activity, believing that healing the land would ultimately heal relationships between people and nature. In conversations with fellow hunters, Jackson emphasized ethical hunting practices rooted in respect for wildlife. He urged them to shift their focus from conquest to stewardship, advocating for sustainable practices that prioritized ecological balance over personal gain. He spoke passionately about how true hunters can become protectors when they embrace a mindset that values every animal's contribution to the delicate web of life. As he ventured into the wild on his own hunting trips, Jackson carried with him both a rifle and a camera, one symbolizing his past and connection to tradition, while the other represented his commitment to capturing moments of beauty and connection in nature. This duality allowed him to navigate both worlds, finding ways to honor his heritage while forging a new path forward. Through his efforts, Jackson hoped to inspire others to recognize their role in nurturing the environment rather than exploiting it. He understood that every step taken towards compassion, whether it be through education, advocacy, or personal reflection, contributed positively to fostering coexistence with wildlife. Ultimately, this journey culminated in a powerful realization: our shared Earth demands empathy from each of us. We are all stewards of nature, tasked not only with protecting its inhabitants but also with ensuring future generations inherit a world brimming with vitality and wonder. As Jackson continued his mission, he embraced this profound truth: when we choose compassion over indifference, we unlock our potential to create lasting change for all living beings who call this planet home.